Welcome to another installment of Salty Reviews. This time I have a game that I think I'd rather do something else, like play almost any other open world game, tie my shoes, or even pay my electricity bill this month. Yes, today's victim is Cyberpunk 2077 and why you shouldn't buy it. The reasoning is a bit loaded, so I'm going to separate this one into sections. Going down the list, I'll be covering game design, game integrity, story and character development, edge factor, and finally why the consumer market is killing video games. The sad thing is, I had a lot of hopes for this game, but I don't entirely put it on CD Projekt Red. Why? Find out later in this video. Also, big spoiler. I know I'm already gonna get yelled at for having a different opinion, so I don't need people crying over spoilers for a game that doesn't even warrant that. Alright, get your salt shakers ready. It's time to dive right in, right here at the Salty Spittoon. Game design. In these type of videos, I normally leave something like game design until the end of the review. Something like a synopsis of the games within the review. However, I believe the biggest flaw with this game comes in the form of its very lackluster development cycle and design. If you were to pop in the game and play it for a bit, you'll start to notice that the game is not okay. Within the first 10 minutes of the game, I found T-posing models in the starting bar, El Coyote. The funny thing is, I loaded the game a few times and only the larger character models experienced this problem. Since we're on the subject of NPCs, I saw a lot of derpy action from NPC AI as well as companion AI, but I'll address the companion AI later on in this section. For now, let's focus on the NPC AI and the things they do and don't. Stay interested in you if you find cover, even if it's exposed to their own line of sight. They'll just back off. The AI was dumber than a bag of bricks. I exclusively ran around the game, just slapping enemies with melee weapons in my fist, because why use anything else? I also like to test what I could get away with in any open world RPG game. I found out something pretty nifty. Any quest that just asks you to go to the next area or follow an NPC, all you have to do is run through the mobs and walk into the new instance. That's it. Ironically, I noticed that a lot of these combat situations leave you a lot of hacking options, but why waste your time? Oh, right, the hacking mechanic. That was a feature I was actually looking forward to utilizing the most. However, when I first launched the game, after I had it preloaded for a week, but they still had a day one patch, I had all intentions of playing the game in stealth and utilizing the hacking mechanic to overcome my problems. Well, had I stuck to doing that, then I would have easily added hours onto the game's main campaign mode. Then I actually started to notice, very early on, that the hacking was just as, if not less impressive than a game like Watch Dogs. Gag me. Here are some of the lovely hacking features in Cyberpunk. You can look at people for the bare minimum amount of information. After a while, they just stop giving you names altogether for non-important NPCs. I had no desire to wander around and find people with bounties on their head either. It would have been like finding a needle in a haystack. You can always hack appliances and other tech, like some of the abilities in Mass Effect games, which I'd rather be playing, minus Andromeda, because that game actually sucks. Most of the tech you can mess with just makes sounds and displays visuals that will distract enemies. I counted on my hands the amount of times I actually needed to do that. It was twice. It was at that point I just scratched my head and said, I'm just going to play the game like a himbo until the hacking became more relevant. Near the second to last big mission, of course it did. I also did another test run. This one was simple. Just don't upgrade my RAM decks and just stick to the 4 slots that you get initially. You don't need any more. There is one hacking mechanic which felt more like padding than anything else. It was the brain dance. During the brain dance sequences, you look for clues in whatever mission you're on. I was very excited at first, until I quickly realized that the amount of investigation is minimum, and the stuff that they had you find was extremely irrelevant. I'd imagine some of the sub-quests that remain undone because I was not interested enough in the game to play 20 plus hours of redundant side missions allowed you for some more interesting brain dance segments, but as it stands, it just felt like padding to me. Much like the driving around town, what is this, Final Fantasy 15? So much time wasted. Now, finally onto the companion AI. They are invincible, only sometimes they do damage, but they get stuck a lot. I had to start my playthrough over because Jackie got stuck in a door during a tutorial mission, and that pathway was my only way out. Other NPCs you could walk through, not your homies. Did I mention I had to restart again because Jackie refused to walk out of an elevator? Sad stuff. On a side note, at least they could take aggro. Just wish I could, control the AI. Game integrity. Some of you might wonder why I separated the game design and game integrity into different sections. Well, this section will mostly focus on the parts of the design that were hugely flawed but could have been avoided if the devs were allotted more time to playtest. Let's start with the physics. I love to be rubber banded all over the place. I was able to bypass many segments from the rubber banding that stems from object collision. However, in the same breath, the object collision caused me to restart many missions, and the worst offender was the parade segment. I got stuck because I killed a mech and it blocked my path. I couldn't get on top of it to crouch. Couldn't walk alongside it either, and I eventually got launched off the map. Actually, there were a lot of bad, easily rectifiable designs that could be epitomized within this one quest. Saving and quick saving. Quick saving has been a godsend for PC players since the 90s. Back when the tech and know-how were both limited. However, you can't always quick save or save when you're out of combat in this game. My checkpoint was very early on in this particular mission. I had even done certain portions in stealth, not revealing my location to the enemy, but they wouldn't let me save. So I had to deal with all the garbo, not just limited to the rubber banding because of the trash physics and object collision, things like enemies blowing themselves up because they shot an explosive like 2 inches away from their face, elevators not spawning, killing the targets didn't always update the quest, and more clipping through the map. Remember that brain dance that I was talking about in the last section? The last one I did, which had me, quote, look for clues to find out where this thing happened, I was literally able to clip through the map and explore the whole area, getting early achievements and scan data for things that I did not have access to. Crashes. This game crashed a lot. I noticed while detached during the brain dance, which I was speaking of, there were a lot of off-map spawned objects clipping through each other. Even if it's off-screen, stuff like that could cause serious problems, like crashing. From what I gathered from my friends, the crashing is actually worse on consoles. Wow, who would have guessed? And save bugs that I hadn't even encountered on consoles from last gen. Wow, who would have even guessed? Lamau. Story and character development. I was somewhat willing to overlook a lot of the bad design choices because I was actually genuinely interested in how they envisioned the Cyberpunk world. However, at best, it's okay. There isn't really anything unique about the storyline, save for them spending a truckload of money getting Keanu Reeves to be a whole character in the game. I had thought that maybe if I picked a different starting point, that I would get an entirely different game experience. I was wrong. The only huge difference in the storyline were just the preluding sections. The most they offer you were additional dialogue options and not really much else. Oh right, most of the dialogue options led to dead ends. They don't make your life easier in any way, shape, or form. A lot of the times, you either embarrass yourself or literally no one cares about what you're saying. I notice a lot of inspiration, yeah, let's call it that, from other similar media. You even have the friend named Jackie who dies because he was too nice. Sounds familiar? Like Jackie from Sleeping Dogs, Carlos in Saints Row 2, or Ash and Kaden in Mass Effect? The dialogue, although non-offensive in regards to racial appropriation, which they got a little bit of credit for, was very flat, and most of the characters you interact with felt like they were ripped from the games or other media that they were gotten inspirationally from. However, I like Johnny, Keanu Reeves' character, for a few reasons. First off, as someone who deals with schizophrenia, his presence in your character's mind was an amazing portrayal of that. The notion that he might take over your body, that you might get stuck, influenced by his will, and they even touched on the subject of what it means to be human, which I largely thought this game was going to focus on. But instead it had this ridiculous social commentary. We know corporations suck, we know the government sucks, but we still don't have the answer for what it means to be alive, to be human. This game felt like a futuristic GTA, where you get scummed over by everyone you work for, your character and friends are actually psychopaths. You know what? That last bit is gonna lead me into the next section, which is Edge Factor. Ah yes, I was wondering how edgy they try to be in this game, and oh boy, the first problem stems from the genital customization. Yeah, genital customization. In my opinion, they would have been better off not having a male and female base model and just let your character's appearance be entirely up to you. But no, you need to have a whole feature about your genitals. And they didn't do a good enough job telling you about that. So as one of the people who streamed the game early on, you know, I have just whole flaccid penis on my screen. It's great. That honestly was the first major red flag for me. Think about it. All the other customization features were very light, and then bam, genital customization. It just felt tacked on, that they just added it at the behest of their corporate overlords. Swearing is cool, but some of the enemies, as well as yourself and companions, will just yell out random stuff. Certain things that would easily trigger someone with PTSD of any form, and I thought that it was really insensitive. However, there's one character that scolds you for making a suicide joke, and I actually really appreciate that. If you played any of the other GTA and Saints Row games, then something like this would already be dry on your palate. There were some pretty good one-liners, but sequences of dialogue? The only intense dialogue sections that had me thinking were when you were talking to Johnny or playing as him in the past. Before anyone asks, Johnny is definitely afflicted with a mood disorder, like bipolar, and he definitely wasn't overplaying it. But hey, sex, future drugs, and crime. Wow, cool. Now, finally. Why do I blame the consumer market? If you've known me for any period of time, especially recently, in recent times, then you know that I entirely blame all the issues wrong with video games right now exclusively on the consumer market. Not the corporations that push out incomplete games, not the game devs that are forced to crunch out games. It's us. We're the biggest problem. This game, being as underwhelming as it is still receiving praise from people I know from all over. They even acknowledge, and I quote, "This game is great even though it crashes every 20 minutes." That's what someone on my Facebook said. Imagine thinking your money is well spent on a game that crashes every 20 minutes. People cried and moaned for the game when the devs asked for more time. They asked for more time. All the big publishers did was open up a forum and show them all the over-demanding fans and that they wanted the game. Do you guys realize that they only intended to make this game for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC? Well, their manpower was split two other ways when Sony and Microsoft decided that it was a good time to release their underdeveloped new consoles, and they needed a bunch of hype games. Why do you think they needed extra time? So we buy the game and cover our complaints with glowing praise. Do you think the devs wanted to drop a game this big in the condition that it's in? Yeah, you can blame the course, but they only move with their consumer market. Had we demanded more time, then the devs would have gotten more time. It's that simple. I kind of hope that a lot of you guys learned a lesson, because hey, I made my money back from buying this game. You guys did it. You guys don't get paid to make content. You guys don't get paid to promote new games, right? You buy video games like any other product or service because it's complete. Would you go to a restaurant and order, I don't know, a ham sandwich, but you get the meat first, but you have to wait for the bread, and you got to pay $5.99 to get the lettuce? You don't, right? So what is with this mentality? Just wait for the game. Stop being so impatient. There are thousands of other video games that I know a lot of you guys have not yet played. And instead of reasonably complaining about the game, we have people that I know who are complaining and moaning that the game hadn't been out already, are now complaining that the game sucks. Anyone could, with a little bit of common sense, could have told you that. I don't feel bad for you. Just note that in the future, you make it hard for people like me who genuinely enjoy video games, who don't have hard affiliations with companies, because that's stupid. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of nonsense for this video, but I don't care. Further perpetuate the fact that people don't really know what they want and they're easily gulled. Don't really care, you know, because at the end of the day, I still play more video games than all of you. Thanks everybody for stopping by and listening in. I don't think I'm going to change anyone else's mind outside of the people who I've already convinced to not get this game. I won't be making any more content on this game for at least a few months. They got to roll out a couple more patches. As we speak, they did drop like a 2 GB patch with some patch notes the other day. They said they fixed stuff that, you know, should have already been fixed when the game came out. But I'm glad to see people are being critical of this, but it doesn't help if you don't isolate and fix the problem. And it's a lot easier to fix than you think. So I'm signing off here. Hope you guys had a good time at the salty Splatoon. And, you know, I hope you consider some of the stuff I said. And if you haven't got the game, don't buy the game. Just don't buy the game yet. Wait for it to go on sale for like $20 in a few months, because no one's not gonna want it. Just the heads up. Okay, bye.